Hey, everyone, and welcome to this Signals from the Frontline special report. We are your hosts, producer extraordinaire and flannel fan, Nicky D. Cannon, and I'm Seth the Mad Dog, your competitors correspondent. And we are here on this kind of out of sequence release from us here, our special Saturday report, to tell you about the new Tyranid Codex, which is going up for pre-order today. Nicky D, are you excited about some NIDs?
I love Tyranids. I think they're one of the most thematic factions that we have in Warhammer 40K. As someone who only got into this hobby
Mhm.
as an adult, I think it's immediately one of the most eye-catching armies. They're so fun to play against. I've only
Mhm.
played against them, but they're always really, really fun. Lots of unique bugs, lots of really cool rules, and I think they're a really great army. So I'm excited for them to get the first 10th edition Codex. How
Yep.
excited for
Yep.
that are you, Seth?
That's very exciting to me. I'd be very interested to see. I want to talk about kind of the things they've done with the 10th edition Codex. So it's super interesting. But why don't you give folks the details on if they're interested in this, where they can go find it, how they can order it, all that jazz.
Absolutely. Well, as Seth already noted, it will be available for pre-order starting today, Saturday, September 2nd. And of course, we recommend ordering it from none other than Frontline, other side of the shirt, Frontline Gaming. And you can do that. You can see the link here on our slide. That is our signals from the Frontline. So please go
You
ahead,
can also find
pre-order
the link in the description, I'm sure.
in the show notes. That'll be included. And then for more, as we learn more about this codex, as we learn more about the models and everything else like that, we are sure to be talking about it in upcoming episodes of Signals from the Frontline. So be sure to come and check us out every Wednesday, 9 p.m. live on YouTube, same place, or you can listen to our
Same
podcast
NID
wherever
time, same NID
same
channel.
same bug time. I think that's the one,
Bug
right?
time.
Same bug time,
Same
same
bug
bug
time.
time, same bug channel. So yeah,
Gotcha.
we're really excited. But make sure you get your pre-orders in now. That will be for actually, and Seth, that's not just for the codex and the data cards, but
Mhm.
that is also going to be for, I think it's, if not most, it's if not all, most of the new models that are coming out with
Yep.
this set as well. So we'll be touching on that here
Yeah.
in just a
It
little
looks
bit.
like everything should be going up for pre-order. I can't think of anything that's missing.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
But all right, well, Seth, but let's get into that and let's give everybody just a quick rundown. Who are the Tyranids? We've kind of talked about them, but some folks may be new to the hobby, so let's give them a little bit of information about what they can expect from this particular faction.
Yeah. So Tyranids are a very, I wouldn't say simple narrative. They're a simple narrative faction. There's complexity to Tyranids, but from the narrative Tyranids, they're pretty straightforward. It is a giant bug swarm coming at us from a different port outside of the galaxy of man, and it is here to eat everything and turn everything into more bugs. There is a giant psychic connection that connects all of the Tyranids together. That's called the synapse or the hive mind.
Hmm.
Links everyone together. In terms of play style for the game, there's such a variety with this codex. You've got big monsters, you've got little gribblies, you've got fun little tech pieces with different types of smaller units. There's tons of options there. And those are reflected in the rules with the play styles, which I'm excited to go through. But Nicky D,
Yes.
this is the first Codex of 10th edition. What's kind of the big deal here? What do we get with this?
Well, yeah, this was, I think, Seth, this was the part I think we were most excited to really check out and to understand because so far, 10th edition, everybody has been playing off of indexes. So we have our data sheets and we have a
Mhm.
single one one detachment. Seth,
Yep.
I can no longer count, at least for this codex. My hand, I can only count to five on one hand. This codex brings us six detachment options.
Yes,
Each
it
of them
does.
includes their own unique enhancements and stratagems. So it's not like ninth edition or 8th edition where you would have all of your stratagems for your faction, and then depending on a sub-faction, you may get additional choices. Nope, this is all the stratagems and the enhancements. They are locked to the detachment that you choose.
Yep.
So that part now we have seen this for the Tyranids Codex. It's the first 10th edition Codex, so that's something that's going to be really bit of a change for how we play the game.
Yep.
But I think as we see this codex in the wild, I think we're going to start understanding well that hey, if this army if we're seeing this detachment, it's going to have a certain flavor, not just in the units, but what it can do with those enhancements and stratagems. And folks, we will be talking about that here in just a couple minutes. And then in addition to that, the other thing that's really new in this codex is that we are getting some brand new units. These were previously revealed, excuse me, on Warhammer Community from the results from the Battle of Agram. So that part there is going to be really great. A lot of either new units seen for the very first time, or some units that are now being upscaled or changed for their model. So lots of great stuff that we are seeing. But Seth, there are some things that folks might have been expecting in this codex that either aren't there, or there are some things that are here and they have not changed at all from the index. So let's have you walk us through those items.
Yeah, so some things haven't changed. So in general, the one detachment we have so far from the index, the invasion fleet detachment, that is the same. It hasn't changed. So that is one of our 6 detachments. Along with that, the data sheets themselves have not changed. So in terms of rules for the data sheets, as far as we can tell, also the points have not changed for those existing units from the index, and there is no sub factions. So that still all remains the same. Now, that being said, these detachments are very flavorful, and they do significantly alter the style in which the army plays. So I think if you're looking for that sub-faction flavor, you can get some through detachments, but no longer are you going to have, Hive Fleet Jormungandr, Hive Fleet Leviathan, Hive Fleet Kraken, Behemoth, all that.
No Chronos.
All that jazz. So those are the things that didn't change, and that's kind of in keeping from what we've been hearing from GW. So I would kind of expect that moving forward. Now, I wouldn't be surprised down the line, Nicky D. We get a year or two into this process of codexes, and maybe we start seeing some datasheet changes when they're releasing things for books that have had indexes for 2 or 3 years. And maybe they've had some time to get some feedback and decide they might want to tweak how a unit functions. But speaking of detachments, let's get into those. Nicky D, why don't you take us through kind of the big brushstrokes of what the detachment does? And I went through most of them, and I pulled out a little bit of the nitty gritty to kind of tease our competitive fans with.
Excellent. Yeah, so folks, if you know Signals from the Frontline, Seth, the Mad Doc, is our competitive correspondent. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to give us a quick rundown or description of what this detachment is and maybe what the theme of it is. And then I'm going to throw it over to Seth. He's going to cover the key details. So starting off, we're going to make this one nice and easy as the first go. This is the detachment invasion fleet. This is the detachment that we have in the index. I'll let you take this one from here because this is one we've already seen in the wild. And
it is unchanged from the codex, so it is adapting to your opponent, allowing you to have some special rules on some of your attacks depending on the target in your opponent's army. It is literally unchanged. If you've seen it in Index Hammer, it is exactly the same. So we're not going to spend too much time on that. The enhancements, the stratagems, all that are the same.
Yeah, it's a pretty good detachment. We've seen Tyranids, already placing pretty well, especially with some team events, that they definitely have a role. Mm-hmm. So this is one where no changes, not necessarily a bad thing that's there. Yep. But Seth, let's go to the next one, and all right, we're gonna start with the one that people might be the most excited about, or given how it played in 9th edition as a different format, it may have folks already scared. And we of course are talking about Crusher Stampede. Folks, it's literally called Crusher Stampede.
It's back.
So it is back, and this is going to be very, very simple. It is focusing on your big monster bugs. So, Seth, this is the one I think people really like to see it. It's an army that is really great to see on the tabletop. But what can you tell us about Crusher Stampede?
So its main detachment rule is as the big monsters become injured, they become more effective. So after they take, if they're below starting wounds, they can reroll to hit, and if they're below half, they get to reroll to wound as well. So it keeps them effective longer. I kind of went through all the enhancements and strategies and tried to pull out one or two big exciting things from each one. The standout stratagem here, there is a 1 CP stratagem for any monster to get full reroll to hit and wound in combat. And you combine that with some of the close combat monsters like the Screamer Killer, or we'll get to it later, the Norn Assimilator, that full reroll to hit and wound can be quite spicy. So I'm excited to see that. I think it'll make some of those combat big bucks just that much scarier, particularly if it's hitting combat and it's uninjured, so it's not already getting the rerolls. This is going to be a big deal for that particular army.
Yeah, a lot of the monsters, they have extra attacks, or they have a melee profile.
Oh wait, no, I misspoke. Sorry, I do need to correct. It's not reroll to hit; it's +1 to hit and +1 to wound. So that stratagem does stack. I was like, I feel like there was nothing here, but that stratagem does stack. So yeah, you can get that +1 is interesting because typically a lot of these models are going to take a -1 to hit as they degrade, so it sort of balances it out and keeps it from degrading.
Yeah, so they're going to be strong, even be able to punch up. A lot of the limbs with extra attacks are like strength 8, strength 9s. So being able to have, +1 to those rolls or re-rolling it via the stratagem, that allows you to even out those dice quite a bit. So we know Crusher Stampede. Those are the big guys. Seth, let's talk about the small guys. So this is Detachment, Unending Swarm. And this is really the other end of the spectrum with Tyranids, and this is just fields of bodies of many of the smaller units that you would be expecting to see in a Tyranids force. So tell us a little bit more about this detachment.
So this specifically buffs endless multitude units, which are your Hormagaunts and Termagants and Gargoyles, not your Barbgaunts or Neurogaunt. Well, I think the Neurogaunts actually do have it, but that's a side point. Not Gene Stealers. So basically, you're just basic troop bugs. And the big thing with those is whenever they have a model destroyed, you roll and they do a surge move and they move D6 inches towards the closest enemy unit, and they can end up in engagement range. So I think World Eaters have a similar mechanic, if I remember correctly. So they kind of surge forward as they become injured. So taking those big things of bugs, and if your opponent doesn't have a way to kill them all in one go, they're just getting further and further upfield and pushing that opponent further and further back. The kind of big standouts to me, I just said take a big unit of bugs, and you're like, but Seth, there's Blast. It's going to eliminate. There's a strat that just says you count as 5 models for Blast. So you can just be like, I have a big horde of bugs, and just be like, nah, I don't care. There is an enhancement. Now, I kind of went through all the data sheets trying to figure this out. You can put it on the winged Prime Tyranid Prime. There we go. And he can join Gargoyles, which are already a fast unit. And the enhancement gives them +3 to their pilot and consolidate. So they can run forward, they can surge forward, and then they can charge and get +3. So it's 6-inch pilot and consolidate. It really can get a lot of movement out of that unit and get them up the field fast. There are some other buffs in this as well to make those little Gribblies a little bit more durable. But the durability of little Gribblies is their numbers, and those numbers just getting extra movement. Movement is king, as always.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is Unending Swarm, folks. We're going to move on to our next one, and this is one that's a little bit different. It's probably going to include a lot of small bugs, but could also be including some of the bigger bugs. This is again, new detachment. This one is called Assimilation Swarm. So, Seth, this is one where really the concept of it is all about consuming biomass. And what that does for the unit functionally on the table is that they can heal if they're around units with the Harvester keyword. But tell us a little bit more. What have you seen?
You have to have a Harvester unit, which is you'll find that in the Codex. What units have the Harvester keyword? But if they're on objectives, they pick another unit within 6 inches of them, and they can heal. And it's very similar to like Necron healing. So that if there's a unit with any wounds on it, it can heal D3 lost wounds. If they and it can bring back 1 destroyed model. If it's an endless multitude, it can bring back 3. So it can bring back a lot of bodies. There's a number of ways to trigger this as well. But one of the things that I find interesting about this, so you're kind of bringing stuff back. So you're going to have a bunch of over time, the units are going to get whittled down, but they're not going to quite go away. One of the strats I think is really powerful, I actually pulled the name up of this one, is Tyrannoformed. And it's when a Harvester unit dies. So someone's targeting that Harvester unit because it's growing things. It has to be on the objective to heal your units. If you kill the Harvester unit while it's on an objective for 1 CP, they can sticky that objective and still hold it. So it kind of goes hand in hand with, I'm going to have these big bugs are sitting on objectives. They're healing my other squads. And then me, the opponents, goes, oh, I got to kill that thing on the objective. And you're like, cool, you killed it. It's still my objective.
Wow.
So
this is going to be an army that's really probably more about board control, holding the objectives, going through that part of it. But
yeah.
there are different play styles, Seth, and let's get to one that is perhaps the polar opposite of that, and that is the Vanguard Onslaught
Mhm.
detachment. So this one is going to be all about lightning fast attacks. It's going to be basically coming out of everywhere to catch your opponent before they can strike you. So,
Yep.
tell us a little bit about this detachment and what
Yeah.
units we might see and some key standouts.
Army-wide fallback and charge. So this is about units bouncing from combat to combat. If you have the Vanguard Invader, which is mostly like your Lictors and
Hmm.
that or the Von Ryan Leapers, they get the ability to, in addition to fallback and charge, advance and charge. So you get a lot of movement and speed out of this army, as well as it's not the easiest thing to tie down.
Yeah.
Of special note, Death Leaper can be the warlord in this particular detachment, which is super cool. And then, importantly, there are two huge standouts in this. The first is an enhancement that after you know who's going first, you can redeploy 3 units, which
Always
makes it
great.
the only, I think it's second to the Phobos Librarian. That's it. Those are the only 2 methods for redeploying once you know who's going first. So
Hmm.
that is super powerful, particularly with these fast moving units that could advance and charge. If you know you're going first, you can get real aggressive and throw them up real far forward. Or if you throw them up forward and your opponents, had to deploy back and be defensive, and then you roll to go second, they can just poof disappear. They can go into strategic reserve. They can just redeploy somewhere else on the field. That is super strong. The
Yeah.
other thing that is just crazy is surprise assault. Wait, no, that's not the one. Where is it? I want to remember the name of this.
Hold on
Yeah,
the name.
hypersensory cilia. It's basically phantasm. If someone completes a move within 9 inches of you, you can pick 2 units and they can make 6-inch normal moves. So you can put those forward deploying units out. Someone tries to run up on them and get in range, do some damage. You're like, cool, bouncing out of there. So they have a 2 CP, 2 unit phantasm strat. That's super good. It's a little bit more restrictive because someone has to move within
Yeah.
9 of you, but still, you can definitely zone off some areas with those. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, you can use it. Obviously, and it's one of those things, Seth. I think is that you can, pull back if someone gets too close, or somebody gets too close and is trying to get to other units. You can use it to move block, right? Move,
Yeah,
move up,
either
and
way, yeah.
having that part set, which is really movement is a key factor in this game, folks.
Yep. All right. What's our
All right,
last one? Our last attachment.
last last but not least, and I actually, to me, this is one of the cooler ones. I am not a Tyranid player, but this is one reading through was a heck of a lot of fun. This detachment, it is called Synaptic Nexus. You'll remember in our introduction for this episode that we talked about the Tyranids really being based on the synapse, their warp hive mind. And this one's really going to focus on some of those leader bugs or leader beasts, and then some of their connection with the synapse and some
Mhm.
of the power that comes from that. So, Seth, what were the standouts that you saw here?
So this detachment functions similar to the old synaptic imperatives from 9th edition, where you would pick depending on what unit in your army, you would get like certain special 1-turn army-wide rules. Similar to that, you have to be in synapse range. You get to pick one of 3, and they're active for 1 turn. One is you just get a straight 5-up involved against shooting. Very good. The next one is
Yep.
+1 advance and charge. Also very good. And the last one is +1 to hit. So there's very much a clear order to almost use those in. I'm going to hunker down early with my 5-up involved. On my go turn, it's +1 advance and charge. And then when you get in there, it's +1 to hit. So really kind of thematic. I like that. I like the choice. You could go out of order as well.
Yeah.
So that's up to you. Things that stood out, they have an enhancement that is no deep striking within 12 inches of you, which is good to begin with.
Good thing to have.
And then, importantly, if something comes out of a strategic reserve on a 4-up, you can just say no, it doesn't, and it goes back into strategic reserve. So it can really mess with your opponent's reserve shenanigans, putting on this, it's synapse creatures. You put it on a backfield thing, it's maybe screening it out. And then they're like, all right, I'm going to bring that unit in from strategic reserve. And you're like, maybe not. On a 4-up, you don't get to come in. And that could be potentially backbreaking, particularly if you keep something in reserve past turn 3 and then it dies.
Or, I mean, right, just this game is going to be based on if your opponent is choosing tactical secondaries, and if they get something right,
Yeah.
like behind enemy lines and deploy homers, right, something like that.
Yeah.
If they're trying to get that as a combination, and you just prevent that. I mean, that's what, a 8-point swing, something like
Yeah,
that, or it could
certainly.
be.
And
So big
I mean,
change.
obviously, your opponent can play around it. They can choose not to go in strategic reserve, but
They
it's
can,
a choice. You know,
right?
if you're like, I bought this unit, it's a foot slogging unit. Like, you know, I bought flash kits, and they don't want to walk across the field. I was planning to strategic reserve them. Well, now what do I do? So it does mess with some people's army construction. So I think that's really a fun little thing to do. But
Yeah.
we don't just have new detachments. We have a few new data sheets, two of which I really want to spend some time on.
Yeah, let's go through it. So real quick for everybody, we've got the Norn Emissary and Norn Assimilator. These are
Mhm.
the new giant bug that they come in one kit. You build one or the other.
Yep.
We've also got, just for sake of being comprehensive, before Seth takes it away with calling out some key details, we've got the Neurolictor, which is a new form of Lictor that's kind of based more on fear and psychic kind of shenanigans, and then not a new unit, but it is
New
getting a new
model.
model, so we're calling it out, is Death Leaper.
Yep.
So that's some cool new stuff that's there with it. But Seth, everybody, I expect when people see this video, they may just fast forward to this part to hear about the Norn Emissary
Well,
and Norn Assimilator. What can you tell
so
us?
I'm going to go through them real quick, but at the end, I want you to decide: are you an assimilator or are you an emissary kind of man?
Yeah.
So the difference between the two, they're both very much the same base stat line with like tough 11, 16 wounds, 2 up armor save, move 10. The difference being the Norn Assimilator is a little bit more combat focused. They both have 10 attacks in combat, 6 from their monster scything talons, but the Norn Emissary's secondary weapon is pretty dang good at 4 attacks at weapon skill 2, strength 12, neg 3, d6 plus 1 damage. So that's a hefty amount of damage, as well as that toxic injector harpoon. It can shoot an enemy monster or vehicle, and if it does connect with it and hit it, which it hits on 2s with those 2 shots, so it's probably going to hit him. It adds 2 to that charge roll, so it can get really close. And it has that harpoon also does some mortal wounds if you try to fall back from it. So it's all about getting in there and doing the damage. We talked about with the Crusher Stampede. For 1 CP, you could give this big boy full reroll to hit, full reroll to wound. Mm-hmm. Both of the Norn Assimilator and Emissary have the singular purpose rule, which I think is really cool. It's got 2 options. What you pick one at the start of the first battle round. You either pick an enemy unit, and until the end of the battle, you get full roll to hit and full roll to wound against that unit. So sort of like an Oath of Moment, which is really strong. But I think that there's another one that you're going to want to take, which is you pick an objective marker. And while you're in range of that objective marker, you have a 5-up feel no pain and objective control 15. So you can just say, when my bug gets here, this is mine. Now, the difference between the assimilator and the emissary is the psychic version of it. So it has some psychic range shooting, which is a bit more flexible because there's different modes. It comes with a 4-up invuln. It's close combat attacks, and so is the monster scything talons, but its other 4 attacks are a little less strong at weapon skill 2, strength 7, neg 2, 2 damage. But the big thing it also has that singular purpose where it can either reroll to hit a wound or it can get that extra OC and feel no pain. But it always is a 4-up feel no pain against mortal wounds. Always.
Yeah.
Dev wounds, psychic, whatever. Doesn't matter. So it's definitely the more durable of the 2 packages. It's debatable if it's less killy because its profile is a little bit lower. But again, if you put it in the right detachment, I think you could beef it up. So with all of that information at your disposal, which one are you going with, Nick?
Well, my heart and my head think 2 different things here, Seth. And in my heart, I am a Blood Angels and Demons player. I love my combat and melee. So that my heart says Assimilator. My head, my brain is telling me Emissary. That gives you a little bit more mission play that's there. I did double points cost are a little bit different. The Assimilator does cost a little bit more in the points.
I think it's around 300-ish.
Around 300 for both of them. Yep. Again, not exact, but around 300 for both of them. So it's one where I personally, if I was building a Tyranids army today, I would be doing the Assimilator because I love my melee. I love going and punching things.
I think it depends on how you want to do that singular purpose, because that Assimilator with full roll to hit and full roll to wound against something, and you're going to like a knight, army or something like that, it could really mess up, that big key knight that's got the buffs that you're like, I need that to not be alive right now.
It does.
Versus if you're playing more of an objective based mission, taking the emissary and I'm going to go hunker down on this objective and just be OC 15 with T11, 2 up armor, 4 up invuln, 5 up feel no pain to everything, 4 up against mortal wounds, and just be like, this is my objective. I think you could get a lot of value out of that. So I think it depends on how you want to play it, which one you go towards.
Yep. And the other part too, Seth, what do you have in the rest of your army, right? This is one unit that's roughly 300
And what
points.
detachment are you in?
Yep. So I think both can see play. I think both will see play. It's going to probably take a couple weeks for people because this is a new model. It's a new kit.
Yep.
So people will have to buy from Frontline Gaming their model and then build it and paint it, and having all those things covered. So it'll be a little while, but I'm expecting that before October begins, that we should have someone that we see it on a table, on War Games Live or at some other event.
If not, I'll be disappointed in all the Tyranid fans, particularly Teen.
Yeah, there we go. All right, well, Seth, we're just about to wrap this part up here, and we're gonna cover just final thoughts here about the Codex. We could go in a lot more length, but really the big thing here that everybody needs to know: Codex Tyranids. What comes with a Codex for 10th edition. It's really going to be built around your 6 detachments. Each one of them has a very clear theme, a very clear way that you're supposed to, lean into the power of the army and get the most out of the enhancements and stratagems. But Seth, what else would you note for everybody here before we wrap this one up?
I think if you want the kind of deep dive, the nitty gritty, the every data sheet, I know a couple of our affiliates are going to be doing those deep dives. Vanguard Tactics, of course, always is going to be going through the new stuff. Tabletop Titans, Grim After Dark. So go check those guys out if you want like the full Codex breakdown. I'm sure I'll put dollars to donuts that both of Vanguard Tactics and Titans will have battle reports up on the day of pre-order. So go check them out there. But go support those guys. They're there. We're just here to give you a taste of what's coming in the NID book.
Yeah, and Seth, I want to point something out to you. You said for the nitty gritty details, you need to go check out. I think in this case, it's if you want to check out the
nitty
gritty details. That's everything.
All right, I'm done. Wrap it up, Nick.
All right, before we go, folks, real quick, a couple items. Want to make sure that we do thank Games Workshop for getting us information here that we can chat about here in advance. So thank you to GW. Also want to thank a couple of the folks that I know that are avid Tyranid players. So Dean, who is frequently in the chat for Signals from the Frontline. You may have noticed some of his miniatures here in our presentation tonight, but we've also got some miniatures that were painted by some of my good friends and favorite Tyranid players. So Frank and Gabe. So check out if you want to see other cool looking Tyranids to get inspired, check them out. But Seth, I'll let you take us out for the night.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this Signal Special Report. Have a great night. Enjoy your Tyranids, and we will see you next Wednesday.